Hey everyone, welcome back to my monthly astrology videos. This is for April 2021. I wanted to change the setup a little bit, and so we're not just looking at me talking in the screen. We got some visuals going on now, and I wanted to make it into an experience where it's a little bit more natural and flowy for myself, as well as this is the kind of style I do for personal reading. So if you're ever interested in getting a natal chart reading for yourself or for somebody else, you're going to get an experience like this, where you get to see your chart and you get to see me on your screen. So before I start, I wanted to go over what you see on the screen over here. This is a astrology chart. We have each of the signs from Aries all the way around to Pisces, 30 degrees separated for each sign. And then we have each of the planets here residing in each of the different signs. So this is what I'll be mainly looking at and talking about as an astrologer. So over here we have a box, a chart of all the aspects lining up. So when I change the dates, as we will be talking and doing, these things are going to change. I'm not going to be going into so much depth into this, but it's just for me and possibly the viewer to be able to look at some of the aspects that I will be pointing out. And then this side is the moon aspect. So this one specifically focuses on the moon because the moon moves a lot faster than all the other planets because the moon's much closer to the earth. And then over here, we just have the nearest lunar phases. So we get to kind of know when the new and full moons are coming up ahead as I start changing the date. So these are just the components of this visuals that you get, what you see on the screen. And this is also the date that's changing. And then because I live in New York, we're gonna set it to New York time. And then over here, we have the same Excel timeline spreadsheet that I made for everyone to view as per the earlier videos. So we'll be maybe looking at this and touching this as well, because these are the big things that's going on. And you can see that more in the end of April, you're seeing more of these squares. Beginner's sake, you can see that there's a lot going on at the end of the month compared to the beginning. I just wanted to point them out so you guys get a good feel of what's going on and how things are a little bit different compared to the prior videos. So stay tuned and we're going to talk about April. Okay, so just like I started before, you can tell from the timeline that the beginning of April is a lot more smoother than the rest of April, especially after the 16th over here. Most of this is going to show that there's a lot of obstacle and challenge coming up ahead in the end of April. The beginning of April is a lot more smoother. As most of you may know, beginning of April is Aries, right? So the sun is transiting through Aries, and then third week of April, we're going to see the sun enter Taurus, and we're going to focus on Taurus things. So as of now, we're focused on Aries, and then our consciousness will be moving on to Taurus matters. Now, if you're somebody who pays attention to astrology a lot, you know that we just had a full moon happening on March 29th in a Libra, right? This full moon in Libra was a special time, and I mentioned this in the last video, but this was because we were conjuncting Chiron and Venus. Right? Aries has to do with our mode of action, our heroism, our ego, our identity. Again, where we take action or don't take action. It's our response energy. It's our survival, fight or flight energy. Now, this energy is the sun consciousness, right? So the sun and Chiron, Venus together, we're opening up in Venus. Chiron is about healing our wounds, past wounds, and then sun being conscious of it. So we're given this ability, this opportunity to most likely heal, fix, open up this ego issue, this identity issue, this combative issue. For each one of us, that's different because each one of us is a different sign. But for the quality of energy for everybody, it is a time to reprogram your reactions and your actions, and you're deciding what you're going to move on ahead in the future and what we're gonna stop moving with. Now, this energy is and was important with the full moon because it kind of climax period where it starts the cycle with the lunar phase and the sun connection. Now, another reason this full movement in the Aries energy is so important is because it is sextiling Saturn over here. Now, sextiles are good, stabilizing energies, full of fortune and opportunity. And so when you see all this Aries energy sextiling the Saturn in Aquarius energy, this new energy that we're trying to stabilize in Saturn and Aquarius, we are also working with our new ego, right? Somewhere in our belonging, our mental framework when it comes to the future and our organization in society is in harmony with this new fixing of the ego, this reprogramming of the ego. We're opening up. And again, it's Venus, so it's feminine issues too. So that was end of March. And this, once we move into April, the sun starts sextiling with the Mars and North Node in Gemini energy. So there's new thinking, new progressive, active thinking, right? There's some urgency with Mars being in Gemini, and then that sextiling with Aries energy and sextiling with the Aquarius energy. There's a lot of forward momentum going on. I can say again that beginning of April is a lot more pushing, a lot of more moving forward, a lot of more active energy online. However, saying that, it's still the beginning of Aries energy, and especially the Chiron. So a lot of the healing and a lot of the conscious ego energy that's being reborn is more on a local, personal energy rather than healing in a more social, worldly energy. That still has to come a long way. That said, the beginning of April starts with Mercury entering Aries, right over here, April 4th, Mercury enters Aries over here. Mercury is about our mentality, it's our communication, it's our intellect, it's our mind energy, mental energy. And that being in Pisces, we were kind of subdued. Our mental energy likes to be more in the air signs, right? Or more in the earth signs, rather than being in a murky, misty, foggy Pisces sign. Our mentality was a little offline, more connected to spirit, more paying attention to the cycles and karma of things rather than logically, reasonably analyzing things. Now that Mercury is in Aries, now our mentality, our intellect, even our conversations and our communication style is more on the forefront, more progressive, more proactive, more even aggressive and urgent because of Aries, right? And so this energy, Mercury coming into Aries, especially behind all this Sun, Chiron, Venus energy, our mind is catching up to what some of the revelations we might have had during the full moon period, because the Mercury is going over those degrees of Aries. When Mercury moves forward and starts hitting some of these planets or asteroids in this case, like Chiron, or even further down the line in April when it's conjuncting the Sun and Venus and doing its new moon with Mercury there, we're going to have our mind make more sense of what's going on, more communication, more information, more perception coming in to the ego, more combative, aggressive energy and moving forward with what's going on in the world, right? On a personal sense, it's really about who you're trying to be with Aries, your actions, and Mercury is coming in there. Your brain is also coming in here. Your intellect is also coming in here to analyze the situation and make decisions. Now, since we're still focused on the Aries energy while I'm talking, you can see that Aries energy gets pumped up, right? With Chiron, Mercury, Sun, and Moon, and Venus right here. And we're going to have this for quite a while until the middle of the month. Now, the reason I say that the beginning of April and especially the beginning of Aries, it's what's healing and what's changing a lot. There's still a lot of challenges and obstacles and much more deeper inner work that needs to be done when it comes to the late part of Aries over here. This is because, first of all, the sextiles are all happening in the earlier degrees, but also because Pluto over here is making that hard aspect, that square toward the sun and toward the late part of Aries, since Pluto is in late part of Capricorn, right? 26 degrees. Pluto's not done with Capricorn yet. Saturn and Jupiter were done with Capricorn since the end of last year, but Pluto's still here in end of Capricorn. So whenever we're going through the late parts of a cardinal sign, we're going to be always making squares to Pluto. Pluto is death and regeneration. It's the underworld god of underworld energy, it's Hades energy. So it's about destroying things, but also rebuilding it afterwards. But it's not something that goes easy. Pluto is very powerful, even overpowering, overwhelming. When we have difficult aspects with Pluto, especially the sun, which is our consciousness and our awareness, we become aware, right, of this great overpowering challenge that we need to face. So that's the end of Aries. People who are born in the end parts of the cardinal signs are more affected right now with the Pluto transit rather than people who are born in earlier parts of the cardinal signs. Now, while all that, Mercury and Sun and Venus is moving through Aries, first 2 weeks of April, Mars over here is also trekking through, going backwards right now. Mars over here in Gemini, connecting to the North Node, is trekking throughout these 2 weeks. We have the Mars making some conjunctions, making some connections to the North Node, which, because Mars is about urgency, and even the planet that has to do with their mode of action, that focus is focused on, North Node. And North Node has to do with future evolutionary ascension energy on a spiritual and even practical materialistic way. So Mars and North Node put together right here has been putting urgency into thinking differently for the future, new destinies happening, new pulls, new callings from a spiritual level, and in a very aggressive way. There's some pull or even push in that direction into the future right now going because of Mars and North Node. Now that has, the tight conjunction has passed in the end of March, and moving end of Gemini, really we start relaxing with that urgency. However, it's difficult during this whole time while the sun is making some squares to Pluto because Mars is also starting to square Neptune over here, right? We kind of experienced with the North Node back here in the earlier part of March and February, but now that the Mars, which is kind of a aggressive, again, planet, that making a square to Neptune in Pisces, well, this is a very accident-prone energy. Mars is very pushy and aggressive, right? It's our ego. And then Neptune it is our spirit, it is karma, but it is also fate. And it is also this kind of Neptune in Pisces, very like slippery and lubricated. It's kind of not being able to see things. So this energy of, oh, I know what's right. I see what I see. I think what I think, compared to what spirit is trying to tell, because it's a hard aspect and a square between these two. It's a challenging energy, right? And that itself is, in the end of the second week, I'd say, right? And so I'd say the end of the second week of April is going to be a little bit more tougher, and it's the start of getting tougher before all the Taurus stuff that happens later. But again, the first 2 weeks is going to be much more smoother. One point I wanted to make before we move on to the Taurus section of the month is how important Chiron is. Chiron has been in Aries since 2018 or 2019, I believe, and it's still at 9 degrees Aries. But Chiron has to do with spiritual healing, soul healing, and the fact that it's in Aries has to do with their ego, right? So there's a lot of spiritual ego healing that's happening. There's new strength, new courage, new heroes arising slowly right now, and Chiron's not going to leave Aries until 2027. This is the early parts of the ego really healing for this new Aquarius world to come into power. So before, again, we go into the Taurus section of the month, I wanted to point out the new moon that happens on April 11th. The moon and sun are together, as you can see, which signifies the new moon. And it's, cradled between Mercury and Venus, and Mercury kind of wakening up and understanding what's been going on with some of the changes with our ego. And then the sun and moon together with this new moon on April 11th is really the setting of the intentions. After this is when you want to start really making that intentional change with the ego, with your actions. And again, we're going to feel some resistance with Pluto over here and some of the Mars Neptune square over here, but this is the day and some days after that you want to set this new intention of who you are, what you're going to become, what the new ego story is, what the new personality behavior is. So what's more exciting about all this Aries stuff that's going on, which is great in the healing sense, but you're looking back and you're seeing how much effort or how much, the whole story of things and how much you've changed and what's gonna change and what needs to happen. That's all that Aries energy. So it's a little aggressive. It can kind of light a fire under your butt kind of energy in the root chakra. But so once we get into Taurus is, well, a little bit more pleasant, a little bit more steady, a little bit more stabilizing. However, what's really exciting for all the astrologers about this particular transit in Taurus is because we're going to be again connecting to Uranus now that Uranus is steadily moving in Taurus now. So just to talk about the transitions between the signs like I normally do, Aries energy has to do with our ego. It's the initiation and activation, especially coming from the oceanic primordial goo, God energy, right? Spirit energy of Pisces, and out of the humongous collective, here comes one ignition, one flint of light, right? One spark. And once we develop this spark into an identity, into a personality, into a hero and something courageous and something that we can move forward with, now we need to see our environment, right? How steady we can be. What is the senses, right? What are our five senses? This is our environment. It's just a little bit further than what our ego and our identity as an Aries has been noticing and developing. Now we're going to move into production, manifestation, um, more materialism and objectivity when it comes to Taurus energy. It's steady and it takes a little bit longer because it knows step by step. It's like agriculture. We're not trying to just like make things happen with one hit. Taurus is repetitive, steady, again, multiple steps, a bigger, abundant project, right? Now, what's really interesting throughout this whole time, now before all that, I'm going to move back into a little bit of this. Uranus over here has been in Taurus for the last 2 years, I believe, right? Uranus entered Taurus in 2019 officially. So since then, Uranus, which is the planet of change, which is the planet of sudden disruption, sudden change, right? Ascension, evolution, technology, okay? All these things. Now that it's in Taurus, Taurus is about agriculture. It is about our environment. It is about Mother Nature. It is about our economy and value and money and such. So you can see that Uranus in Taurus has been disrupting our financial economy in the world, right? Countries and even natural disasters and such. But on a spiritual level, Uranus in Taurus is telling us to change our values, something of our values or a production method, right? What abundance means or what beauty means is really old, not sustainable, not in line with nature, right? And there's a lot of technological advancements that's happening to disrupt this, but also refine it to make it better, to make it more sustainable and such. So Uranus again is still in 10 degrees of Taurus, which is still an early part of Taurus. So we still have another 5 years for Uranus to go through Taurus. But what's important is that the sun is moving part of this sign, right? Because the sun gives us consciousness, awareness. Like I say, it's like a flashlight that we're able to see and experience all the energy that's happening with these signs and planets. So when the sun moves into Taurus, we're going to be more aware with the Uranus change that's happening in the Taurus sector. And Venus Mercury coming in here is also really nice because the sun's not by itself, but Mercury, our intellect, is also going to catch up and understand in a very lightning electrical way with Uranus. And then Venus is also the planet of, again, reward, femininity, and openness and reception. So we're going to be changing, right, with Uranus, with all these. We're going to go through kind of a vortex, if you will, with Uranus. We're kind of waiting for Venus and Mercury and Sun to make conjunctions to Uranus. But the fact that it's already in Taurus, we're going to start feeling it. We're going to sense all this happening. And, things are going to be disruptive. Uranus is this energy that's the space shuttle rumbling to take off, right? It's also a hurricane energy. It's a gust of wind. And now talking about Uranus and Taurus and Sun, Mercury, Venus and Taurus, which is all great ascending energy. Yes, disruptive, but it's futuristic. This Uranus energy is making some strong squares to Saturn. We will be revisiting, right, since February when the sun was in Aquarius over here, touching Saturn and Jupiter, squaring Uranus. We're going to be seeing it from the other perspective, right? We're going to be more conscious to the Taurus changes that's going on. rather than the Aquarius stability or Aquarius change that's going on during February, right? So this whole change between this whole hard aspect between Aquarius and Taurus, we're going to be revisiting it. We're going to be more aware of the disruption, but also the ascension happening between groups, Aquarius, right? Teamwork and the social framework, the mental framework versus the the foundation of things, what exists, the material, practical side of Torah. But we're going to be more conscious from a different perspective, and this perspective is going to be more about our values, our production methods, right? Our actions repetitively becomes our manifestation, right? How we act is going to be how we produce. That's the transition between Aries and Taurus. And so now we healed a lot of our modes of action, right? We're going to really be changing how we produce things. And that's what Uranus and Saturn wants, right? And Saturn and Aquarius, especially with Jupiter and Aquarius too, like there's been a lot of change in the Aquarius energy, which is about teamwork, which is about networking, right? So it's about organizing groups, right? So a lot of that is gonna fall apart, and also some groups are gonna be more organized, more collected together, right? On a personal level, it's our self-value, it's our confidence, it's our production method, like I've said before. Now moving back a little bit, just wanted to touch on Mercury's transit or ingress into Taurus from Aries, right? Mercury and Aries are, our speech is going to be more active, more combative, more like a firework, more like a shotgun, machine gun. While Mercury in Taurus, we're going to be able to see some step by step, more of the builder type of mentality, the soldier mentality of Mercury. The Taurus Mercury, we're going to be thinking about more of the resources and practicality of our plans and such that we have, which is, again, we're going to be touching that with the whole change that's going in the world, the change that's going with our values, what makes money, what doesn't make money anymore. So these are some of the things that we're touching on a social level. Mercury coming here is going to give us help into analyzing the step by step, the more the details, the practical details, because Taurus is about resources and money, whatever changes you're trying to make, right? Do we have enough resources? Do we have enough money? All that. How much time am I going to need? How much space and resources am I going to need? And Mercury is going to help us do that. Venus over here, right, moving back a little bit as well. Venus enters Taurus, Mercury enters Taurus, and then the Sun enters Taurus in that. So, right, Venus over here entering to Taurus, this is really good because Venus rules Taurus, right? When a planet is in its ruling sign, it's in its best, comfort zone, its best self. Venus loves being in Taurus because it's where it's most abundant. Venus just wants to have fun, be pleasurable, be joyful, right? And so Taurus is going to be able to give us all of that. Now, Uranus over here, the planet of change and planet of, revolution, there's going to be a lot of changes with all this Venus energy and Mercury energy and Sun energy. So I'd say expect the unexpected. And like I said before, you can see over here Venus, Mercury, and Sun slowly day by day getting closer to Uranus, making that conjunction, and then following it through, right? So these are great opportunities because all these smaller planets are lined up with with each other, and also with this big planet, that there's a lot of consciousness, a lot of information, both from the mental side, both from our receptive reward side, and the highest consciousness, our sun, with a big planet that's making all these changes. So there should be a lot of aha moments going on, both destructive and constructively throughout, end of April. Now, while, all these planets are, making its party through Uranus and getting this new electricity, right? Uranus is like a battery in that sense. It's this technological pump. And so while all these guys are getting powered up in Taurus, we also have Mars finishing up in Gemini, right? Making some of these nice trines to Jupiter. Jupiter-Mars trines are really good because, again, Mars is about pushing, and it's the fire, heat energy. And then Jupiter is also heat, but it's also in a gaseous fuel magnifying state. So Mars and Jupiter over here push, and even just like a gusto of energy. even in the world. I would imagine that there's going to be very constructive momentum in a very progressive way. And then, just like I was saying, while all of these planets are conjuncting with Uranus and Taurus, we also have Mars finishing up in Gemini, which means that we're going to be entering Cancer over here, right? And so Mars is going to start not be focused on our mentality and give energy to the Gemini communication and conversation and all that, twinsy communication energy, right? That energy is going to kind of wane down and it's going to move into the more emotional, more comfort zone oriented energy. So Mars, our ego, our modes of action, is going to start sensing through our realm or energy of comfort, of our emotions, of our spiritual past. Mars in Cancer is not too powerful in that sense. Mars is a little weak in Cancer because imagine a soldier walking through water or the swamps, right? It's a little held back. The Mars is focused on comfort rather than, let's say, getting the work done or killing, the enemy or whatever that Mars has to do. But this is also a good time for us to be focusing and moving forward with home issues, with emotional issues, with body issues in that sense. So this is whoever, people who have Cancer energy, they're going to be able to move forward in that sense. Mars in Gemini is a lot quicker, a lot more explosive energy compared, especially with the trine to Jupiter and trine to Saturn and such that I spoke about. Mars in Cancer is a little repressive. It's a little bit more containment. So for Mars to move through Cancer, kind of needs to charge up. It needs to build up its energy before it kind of like implodes or even explodes. And so that's Cancer. That's what we're gonna be experiencing in May. So during April, I would say earlier of April, especially during Aries season, we're going to be moving forward a lot more. We're going to see, or we're going to experience a lot more changes that needs to happen on a deeper level, on a social, deeper worldly level when it, squares Pluto. And then things are going to kind of start getting steady. Things are going to kind of start getting grounded when we start moving into Taurus, right? I'd say before Uranus, it's more of that like grounded energy of knowing that you're packing and moving. And then once everything hits through Uranus, that's when we land or we, fly and land somewhere, So get ready for changes to happen, for you to experience some changes end of April and onward. Right. And Taurus energy, Cancer energy is a little bit more slower. The frequency is just a little bit more slower and steady than the Aries and Gemini energy that we were experiencing in March and earlier in April. So I say get a lot of things done or start things, make the needed changes during Aries and keep going with it. But know that in Taurus, there's going to be more changes going on and there's going to be a sense of stability that more of a practiced action that you're going to start grounding and rooting yourself in. Before we finish, I wanted to touch the full moon, April 26th, 11:32 p.m. New York time. During this full moon, right, we can see that Mercury and Venus has already finished the Uranus conjunction, and then Mars has already moved into Cancer. So there's going to be this trine that the moon is going to be making with Mars while it's opposing Taurus. So this full moon, we're going to be really focused on some of the square energy between the Scorpio, Aquarius, and Taurus energy, and then also the trine into Mars and Cancer energy. So this is going to be a little bit difficult, I'd say, because of the square and then the Mars and Cancer, right? So the moon in Scorpio, the moon is going to be emotionally full, hypersensitive to the Scorpio energy, which is about boundaries, about being black and white, knowing your limits. And it is also about the vulnerable energy and how you want to protect them. Right? So we're going to be very sensitive, emotionally connected to trust and intimacy and boundaries. So because our emotions are going to be so hypersensitive with this energy, the sun in Taurus and all these other energies over here is showing us what we need to change with our values, right? Something feels very vulnerable, we need to change our values, right? because we need to protect it in a different way. We need to make more value because something feels not valued, right? Not protected, right? Or something feels too protected, right? And something needs to let go. This Taurus and Scorpio axis is about value and boundaries, protection, right? How protected something is gives it value, and how much something has value gives it kind of this natural sense of protection, right? Or sacredness that the Scorpio has, this intensity that the Scorpio brings in. So again, there's, because the sun's in Taurus, a lot of the changes is in our values, is in our production method, is in our abundance, right? Riches, manifestation energy. Right, so you want to be focused on that, even though the moon is going to be full in Scorpio, and you're going to be hypersensitive about your boundaries and even your weaknesses, right? Now, with all of this opposition going on, the main factor over here with the Saturn square that's playing in very strongly is this stabilizing energy, but also this cutting, releasing energy in Aquarius, right? This Aquarius belonging energy. So we're really growing up, maturing in this where we belong consciousness, this attraction energy, right? So whatever we're attracting, is going to be opposing some of the changes or some of the foundations that already exist in Taurus, and then some of the boundaries that we have in Scorpio. So, we really need to change our boundaries and change our values so we can really grow up in our social framework of things in Aquarius. And Aquarius is that new future energy that we're all trying to manifest and work. I would say this full moon is going to really bring consciousness into this big obstacle or this puzzle pieces that we're experiencing between our boundaries, our social framework and belonging, and our values and methods of production and value. And so I brought this Mars in Cancer up as well with this full moon before, because the moon in Scorpio is ruled by Mars. So with all this emotional energy trining together, our emotions are really going to be on the forefront, right? There's a lot of change growing up we need to do, but there's a lot of emotional comfort that needs to be worked out. We need to feel. It's a feeling energy that's going to really lead all these changes, right? So how you are feeling inside and your soul energy is really going to play an important part with this big square that's going on. Yeah, so I think that's about it for this month. If you have any questions or if you have any comments about astrology or how I did this video compared to the other videos, feel free to leave me a comment or send me a message. If you want to do a natal chart reading with me, again, feel free to message me. We can book an appointment and we can go in depth with your personal natal astrology and what's going on with the skies right now. Hope to see you guys next month. Bye.